Hello and welcome to the Alpha Edge Podcast, the show for men over 50 who refuse to fade out, slow down, play small, or settle for average. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a healthy aging expert, coach, and founder of the Alpha Edge, and I am here to help you get and stay strong in every dimension of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, morally, and spiritually. You're here because you're ready to reclaim your power, to own your masculinity, and lead your life with strength and purpose. If you're ready to sharpen your edge, revive your drive, and lead like a man who's built for more, you're in the right place. All right, men, let's get after it. What if I told you the key to becoming a calm, powerful, purpose-driven man was discovered over 2,000 years ago by warriors, emperors, and philosophers who didn't just talk about life, they conquered it? And what if I told you that there's a playbook for how to live strong, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, no matter what life throws at you? And what if I told you that this playbook still works today? In fact, probably now more than ever, especially men like us, men in the second half of life who refuse to fade quietly into the background. Okay, guys, so today we're going to talk about Stoicism. And look, this isn't just some dry academic lecture. This is battle-tested wisdom. Will sharpen your mind, steel your spine, and help you master the one thing most modern men have completely lost control over: themselves. So we're going to learn what Stoicism is, where it came from, and how to use its timeless principles to build a life of strength, purpose, and unshakable peace, no matter what's going on around you. Because here's the truth. Weak men get tossed around by life. Strong men anchor themselves in something deeper. Stoic men, they become unbreakable. All right, guys, let's get into it. All right, so let's start our conversation here with a definition. What the heck is Stoicism? Before we jump into the weeds, let's just figure this out. Most people hear that word and they think some cold, emotionless robot who never smiles, never cries, and just stares blankly into the abyss while quoting Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, no thanks, not for me. That's not what Stoicism is about. It's not even close. At its core, Stoicism is a practical philosophy for living a good life. It's about mastering yourself, owning your thoughts and your actions, and focusing on only what's in your control. That's it. And that's really the essence of Stoicism. And in a world full of emotional chaos, overreaction, and victim mindset, that is everything. Here's the simplest definition of Stoicism that I found. Stoicism is the discipline of focusing only on what you can control, accepting what you can't, and living with virtue, purpose, and courage. So there you go. Pretty simple, pretty succinct. It's not about being emotionless. It's about not being ruled by your emotions. It's not about being passive. It's about choosing your response instead of being jerked around by every little external trigger. Stoicism teaches us to ask one simple question: is this in my control? If the answer is yes, then we take action. If the answer is no, let it go. Simple, but not always easy, and powerful as hell. And look, this isn't some woo-woo spiritual fluff or hyper-masculine nonsense. This is the same philosophy that guided warriors, generals, statesmen, emperors, kings through plagues, battles, betrayals, and brutal hardships. This is about becoming the kind of man who can walk through fire and come out the other side, not just standing, but stronger. And if you are a dude over 50 listening to this right now, I want you to hear me. You need Stoicism. Not because life is easy, but because it's hard. Not because you're weak, but because strength needs to be trained. Not because you're broken, but because there's still more to build. All right, guys, so now we've got our working definition of Stoicism. Let's rewind the clock by about 2,300 years or so, give or take, and let's take a quick walk through history. Stoicism was born out of chaos. We're talking about Athens, Greece, 3rd century BC. This is a time when empires were falling, wars were constant, and life was pretty short and pretty brutal. People weren't sitting around sipping oat milk lattes and journaling about their feelings. They were trying to frickin' survive. Enter a man named Zeno of Citium, a shipwrecked merchant who lost everything and washed up in Athens with nothing but his thoughts. So instead of giving into despair, Zeno dove into philosophy and he asked, how can I live a good life no matter what happens to me? And from that question, Stoicism was born. So Zeno soon started teaching out in public, and his students became known as Stoics. And now here's where the story gets kind of cool. Stoicism didn't stay a dusty Greek idea. It evolved and it got together. The Romans picked it up and they turned it into a battle-tested operating system for life. This wasn't just for armchair philosophers. This was for soldiers, statesmen, slaves, emperors, men on the front lines of life and death. Let's give a shout out to three of the main heavy hitters in Stoicism. These are probably names I'm guessing you would have heard if you know anything at all about Stoicism. Certainly you know who these dudes are. First up is Epictetus. He is known as the slave philosopher. So Epictetus was born into slavery, crippled. He didn't own anything. Yet he taught that real freedom comes from within. His core message, you don't control what happens, but you do control how you respond. So in other words, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Next up, Seneca. Seneca is known as the millionaire mentor. He was a wealthy advisor to Emperor Nero. Yeah, that's the crazy one. He wrote these powerful letters on how to stay grounded amidst chaos and temptation. His big theme, practice adversity before it arrives. Train now so you don't fall apart later. One of his famous sayings is, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And then finally, we have Marcus Aurelius. I'm guessing most of you out there have at least heard that name. He's known as the philosopher king, the freaking emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world. And still he wrote in his journal every night about how to be a better man. His journal became the classic meditations. If you haven't read it, you're missing out. He taught us that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. So think about that. A slave, a billionaire, and an emperor all preaching the same philosophy. Why? Because life comes at all of us hard. Doesn't matter how much money you have or what your title is. What matters is how you show up. And that's why Stoicism still hits us today. In a world full of soft men, short tempers, and emotional outbursts, Stoicism is the antidote. It's ancient, yeah, but it's also timeless. So now let's dig into the meat of this thing, the core principles of Stoicism, and how you can start living them out today. Okay, so in the practice of Stoicism, there are these 4 core tenets here, and we're going to go through them one at a time. So here's the first and arguably the most important Stoic principle, and it's the foundation that everything else is built on. So core tenet number 1 of Stoicism is this: control what you can, accept what you can't. That's it. Stoicism 101 right there. If you get nothing else from this podcast episode, get this. There are only 2 kinds of things in life: the things you control and the things you don't. And the second you start focusing only on what you can control, that's when your life changes. Here's the problem most men face. We waste all of this energy, time, and emotional bandwidth trying to control the uncontrollable. We stress over what people think about us. We rage at the news. We spiral out over traffic and politics and our past and other people's actions, all of it totally outside our control. And then we wonder why we feel anxious, angry, defeated, and out of alignment. Epictetus said it best. He said, some things are up to us and some things are not. Your job as a man, especially in the second half of his life, is to get crystal clear on which is which. Let me give you a couple of examples here. You cannot control the economy, but you can control how you spend, save, and show up at work. You cannot control your wife's mood, but you can control how you lead with love and strength in your house. You cannot control aging, but you can control how you eat, train, and take care of your body. Every time you waste energy trying to control something that's outside your hands, you weaken yourself. But when you focus what is in your control, your thoughts, actions, habits, and attitude, you reclaim your power. That's Stoicism. So here's your alpha challenge when it comes to core tenet number 1. Stop being a victim of circumstances. Start being a man of response. Next time something pisses you off or throws you off, ask the question, is this in my control? If yes, do something about it. If no, let it go. This is what it means to be mentally strong. All right, so let's move on to the second core tenet, one that answers the question, okay, if I'm supposed to control my actions, then how do I act? So that brings us to core tenet number 2, live according to virtue. So here's the next big Stoic idea. The goal of life isn't pleasure, it isn't power, it isn't success, it's virtue. Now, I get it. Virtue isn't a word we throw around very much these days, but to the Stoic, virtue wasn't just a moral checklist, it was your operating system for your life. The Stoics believed that a man's character, not his status, wealth, or even his comfort, was the true measure of a good life. So what does living with virtue really mean? The Stoics broke this down into 4 cardinal virtues, and you can think of these as the pillar of being a solid man. And those 4 pillars were wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. So wisdom is your ability to know what's right. This is practical judgment. It's seeing the world clearly and acting accordingly. It's not book smarts, it's life smarts. Ask yourself this: is this action aligned with truth and reality? That's wisdom. Second pillar, courage. Do what's right. Wisdom means nothing without the guts to act on it. Courage isn't just running into burning buildings. It's having hard conversations, standing up for your value, and doing what's right even when that's uncomfortable. So ask yourself, am I doing what's hard because it's right, or what's easy because it's safe? Pillar number 3 is justice. Treat others right. This is about fairness, integrity, and leading with strength that serves, not dominates. As Marcus Aurelius put it, what is not good for the hive is not good for the bee. Ask yourself, am I building others up, or am I just building myself up? And the final pillar of virtue is temperance. Again, a word we don't really throw around a whole lot in today's conversations, but this refers to keeping your desires in check. This is discipline. This is moderation. This is self-control. And in today's world that screams more and more and more, the Stoic man knows how to say enough. Ask yourself, am I ruling my appetites, or are they ruling me? Now, when you put all 4 of these together, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, what you've got is a full blueprint for being a man of substance, a man who thinks clearly, acts bravely, leads justly, and lives with restraint. A man who doesn't need applause, who doesn't need permission, because he's already guided by something deeper. So let me ask you, brother, are you living according to virtue or according to convenience? Because this world doesn't need any more clever, successful, or charming men. It needs more virtuous men. Men with spine, honor, and unshakable values. Men like you are built for that. That was our second core tenet of virtue. The third core tenet is memento mori, remember you will die. And this is one of the more sobering and empowering ideas in all of Stoicism. Let's break this apart a little bit. So memento mori is Latin for remember you will die. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, okay, that's kind of depressing there, Kev, hear me out. Because the Stoics weren't obsessed with death, they were obsessed with life. And they understood something that most of us modern men run from. The clock is ticking. Every breath you take is one less that you're ever going to get. Every sunrise you see is one step closer to your last. And if that freaks you out, good. You're alive. You're awake. The point of memento mori isn't to scare you. It's to wake you up. Marcus Aurelius said, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. So let me ask you something. If you knew for a fact that you had 1 year left to live, would you keep living the way you're living now? Would you keep numbing yourself out with food, alcohol, porn, distractions? Would you keep putting off the gym, the hard conversation, the side hustle, the apology? Would you keep saying someday about the things that actually matter? Stoicism teaches us to look death in the eye, not to fear it, but to use it. To remember that life is, in fact, a limited time offer, that every day you wake up is a gift, and that there's no room for wasting it on trivial BS. Here's the truth, man. You don't get to choose when you die. That's not really an option. But you do get to choose how you live until that day comes. So live like the man who's aware that his time is finite. Live like your kids, your wife, your God, and your future self are watching, because they are. Don't just exist. Don't just drift. Live with purpose. That's what memento mori is all about. Okay, then our fourth core tenet is amor fati. This is love your fate. So notice that this saying, or this core tenet, doesn't say tolerate your fate. It doesn't say accept your fate. It says love it. It says love your fate. That means even the pain, even the setbacks, even the things you wish had never happened. Because the Stoics believe that everything that happens to you, whether it's good or bad, is fuel for becoming a stronger, better, more grounded man. Now, I want you to take a minute and think about that. You didn't get that job? Amor fati. Maybe it wasn't your path. Going through a divorce? Amor fati. Maybe it's time to build deeper character. Got injured? Amor fati. Now you train smarter and you learn patience. Lost someone you love? amor fati. You've been invited to cherish life and love more deeply. This isn't just some feel-good, toxic positivity, woo-woo fluff. This is a warrior's mindset. It says, I don't get to choose what happens, but I do get to choose how I use it. Ryan Holiday says it like this: the obstacle in the path becomes the path. Never forget, with every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. So here's your challenge. Stop resisting reality. Stop whining about the things that should be different. Start asking, how can I use this? Because resistance is weakness. Acceptance is power. But love for the struggle, for the process, for the fire, that's elite. That's Stoic. That's alpha. All right, the next core tenet, so this is core tenet number 5 of Stoicism, is to rehearse the worst. The Latin word is, I think it's premeditatio malorum. Not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but it's basically the premeditation of evils. So basically, the translation here for us and modern day men is to picture worst case scenario on purpose, intentionally. Now, before you start thinking this is just negative thinking or doomsday paranoia, it's not. This is one of the most strategic mindset tools in all of Stoicism, because here's what most men do. They avoid thinking about the worst case scenarios because it makes them uncomfortable. But the Stoic man, he trains his mind like he trains his body through exposure, discipline, and preparation. He rehearses the loss, the failure, the rejection, the hardship before it ever shows up, so that when it does, he's not rattled, he's ready. Seneca says it like this: he robs present ills of their power who has rehearsed their coming. So let's make this practical. You've got an important business pitch coming up. Ask yourself, what if it bombs? What do I do next? You've been crushing it in the gym, but injury's always a risk. Ask, what if I get sidelined? How will I keep growing? You're a family man. You love your wife and kids, but life is fragile. Ask, what if I lost them? How would I carry on? How would I carry that grief with strength and with honor? Now listen, I want to be clear. This isn't about worrying. It's about mentally walking through that fire so that if it ever comes, you don't panic. You respond like a man who's been there before. This is psychological callousing, if you will. This is strength training for your soul and for your mind and for your emotions. And there's a bonus to this practice too. It begins to make you more grateful. When you imagine losing the things you love the most, your health, your freedom, your people, you start showing up with some more appreciation. You hug your kids a little bit tighter. You don't skip your training sessions. You stop sweating some of the small stuff. So I want you to try this. Every morning, spend 60 seconds visualizing one thing going wrong, maybe even horribly wrong, and how you'll respond like a calm, grounded, stoic man. Train your mind for adversity, and adversity will never train wreck your life again. That's a stoic edge. All right. Next up, we have one final and maybe our most important tenet, and this is the one that ties them all together, and that is core tenet number 6, which tells us that self-mastery is strength. Now, this is where everything we talked about comes together, because at the end of the day, Stoicism isn't about sounding smart or reading some old books or quoting dead philosophers. It's about one thing and one thing only, and that's mastering yourself. Your thoughts, your impulses, your emotions, your actions. Because the man who can master himself is the man who can lead his family, grow his business, stand firm in his values, and walk through hell without flinching. That's power. But let's get real. Modern day men are ruled by their appetites. They chase comfort. They cave to cravings. They fly off the handle at the smallest offense. They scroll, they swipe, they binge, and escape any time life gets uncomfortable. That's not freedom. That's slavery. Freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. Freedom is doing what's right, even when you don't feel like it. That's why the Stoic path is the hard path, but it's also the only path that leads to real strength. So let me put it like this. When you wake up and hit the gym, even though you don't feel like it, that's Stoicism in practice. When you stay calm during an argument and you choose wisdom over ego, that's Stoicism. When you turn off the porn, turn down that drink, turn away from the easy dopamine hit, that's Stoicism. Self-control is the ultimate flex, because if you don't rule yourself, someone or something else will. And look, this is not about being perfect. You're going to mess up. We all do. We're human. You're going to lose your cool. You're going to take the easy way out from time to time. But the Stoic man notices it, he owns it, and he realigns. He doesn't wallow in shame or make excuses. He simply asks, what would the best version of me do next? So, if you don't take anything else from this episode, take this. Your ability to master yourself moment by moment is the foundation of everything else. And the good news, that strength is trainable. Just like your muscles, just like your mindset, train it every freaking day. Because look, the world doesn't need any more emotionally reactive, impulsive, undisciplined men. It needs you, grounded, composed, and dangerous. Hey brother, quick question. Are you living like a modern Stoic, or are you getting tossed around by life? I put together a free workbook titled The Stoic Edge. It's a 7-day action plan to help you master your mind, your emotions, and your responses so you can lead yourself and your family with grounded strength. If you want to stop reacting and start leading, grab your free copy now. You can find the download link in the show notes for this episode or head over to alphaedgearmy.com. So let's move away from theory and talk about applying all of this to your real life. So let's talk real world tools, habits, and how to live like a modern Stoic alpha man. So we've got the principles. Maybe you're fired up. You're ready to be calm in all of the chaos going around us. Here's the big question. How do you actually live like a modern Stoic alpha man? Because let's be honest, it's one thing to nod your head while listening to a podcast. It's another to walk this out when life throws a punch. So let's break this down into 5 real-world areas that matter the most to men in our season of life and how Stoicism gives you an edge in each one. First up, Stoicism is going to matter in your body. Look, your body is a temple. It's a sacred temple, but most men treat it like a frickin' junk drawer. A Stoic doesn't ignore his health. He doesn't say, I'm too old. He trains because discipline is dignity. Lift heavy things, even when you don't feel like it. Eat like a man with a purpose, not like a child with cravings. Sleep, hydrate, stretch, do healthy things because your body is the vessel for your mission. Your family, your community, culture at large needs a strong man. Step up and be him. So number 2, Stoicism matters in your mind. The Stoic mind is sharp, disciplined, and focused. Don't scroll, study. And don't rage over the news. Ask yourself, is this in my control? Don't let your emotions lead. Let your values lead. Here's your practice. Journal every day. What did I do well today? Where did I lose control? How can I improve? Have a morning mental prep session. Ask yourself, what could go wrong today and how will I respond like a king? Train your mind like your muscles with reps and resistance. Number 3, Stoicism in your relationships. You want to be the rock in your marriage, in your family, in your brotherhood? Then start by becoming the man who doesn't react, but one who responds. Don't meet emotion with emotion. Meet it with calm strength. Don't nag, don't whine, don't be a little bitch, don't withdraw. Lead. Speak the truth in love. Have the hard conversation with grace and grit. And for the love of God, listen more than you talk. Being a Stoic man doesn't mean being emotionally detached, but it does mean being emotionally mature. Number 4, Stoicism in your work, in your purpose, in your mission. You don't have time to drift anymore. That ship has sailed. You're in the second half of your life, maybe the fourth quarter. It's time to work with purpose. Show up early. Lead by example. Don't cut corners. Don't coast. Don't just retire. Repurpose. Ask yourself every single day, what does my highest self expect of me today, and how can I deliver on that? Look, your legacy is being written right now. Write something worth reading. And finally, Stoicism in this culture. Look, let's get real. We live in a world that celebrates emotional outbursts, soft men, instant gratification, and moral confusion where nothing means anything, or maybe put another way, everything can mean everything. There's no real right and wrong. But Stoics don't bow to culture. They stand firm in it. You want to be a man of value, strength, and clarity, you must be countercultural. Turn down the noise, live your values out loud, be the example, not the echo. Because when your wife, your kids, your coworker, your church, your community look around, they should see you and think, that's a man who knows who he is. Okay, guys, as we're wrapping up here, I put together what I'm calling a Stoic starter kit. So these are 5 daily practices that you can use to start living like a modern philosopher warrior. Number 1, ask every morning, what could go wrong today and how will I respond like a grounded man? Number 2, journal every night. Where did I stay composed? Where did I lose my control? And what can I do better tomorrow? Number 3, embrace discomfort. Take a cold shower, do a hard workout, do some difficult task, do something hard on purpose every single day. Number 4, practice stillness. Just 5 minutes of silence, prayer, meditation. Just breathe. The Stoic man is never frantic. And finally, number 5, serve someone else. The goal isn't just personal power, it's righteous impact. Be strong for others. All right, guys, let me leave you with this. The Stoic man isn't perfect. He's just committed. He's the man who shows up again and again. in his family, his health, his mission, his mindset. He's the lighthouse, not the wave, the foundation, not the flinch, the one who walks through fire and comes out forged. And that's what the Alpha Edge is all about. Okay, man, so we've covered a lot here, just a very quick crash course on what Stoicism is. You've heard from slave philosophers and Roman emperors and ancient billionaires. You've explored the 6 core tenets of this ancient code, and you've seen exactly how to apply them in your life as a man over 50. But let's be real. Knowledge without action is useless. So for the next 7 days, I want you to live like a modern Stoic. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but intentionally. And here's what that looks like. So in addition to your Stoic starter kit, things that we're going to try to incorporate as daily habits, I've got a 7-day Stoic challenge for you. So something to do each day for the next 7 days, and just do these intentionally. Okay, so day 1 of this 7-day challenge, journal your top 3 triggers. What sets you off emotionally? Write down how you're going to respond next time with calm, grounded strength. Day 2, do something physically uncomfortable. Do a hard workout. Skip a meal. Take a cold shower. Or training or discipline. Day 3, practice rehearsing the worst. Imagine something going wrong today and visualize how you'll respond like a king, not a coward. Day 4, catch yourself in a moment of frustration and ask yourself, is this in my control? If not, release it. If yes, take right action. Day 5, have a hard conversation you've been avoiding. Lead with truth, lead with love, lead like a Stoic. Day 6, disconnect. Turn off all distractions. Be still, be present, be undistracted, even if it's just for an hour, maybe even 30 minutes, but just some time to disconnect and be present with yourself. And finally, day 7, recommit to your core values. Write down, who am I becoming? What kind of man do I want to be remembered as? And look, I just want to reinforce this point again. Stoicism isn't about turning yourself into a stone statue. It's about being a man of depth, strength, integrity, mastery. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't get tossed around by life, but stands firm in the storm, leads from the front, and lives with fire in his soul. And if you're listening to this, that's already in you. So here's your call to action, man. If this episode hit you, share it. Send it to a brother who needs to hear it. Post it, tag me, be the spark. And if you want to go deeper into this work, mindset, strength, leadership, brotherhood, come join us inside the Alpha Edge membership. Because iron sharpens iron, and you weren't meant to do this alone. So until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and keep showing the world what a real man looks like. Okay, men, that's our show for this week. Don't forget to download our free guide titled How to Raise Your Testosterone Naturally. You can find the download link in the show notes for this episode on whatever app you're listening to this podcast on. If you've enjoyed today's show, here are 3 ways you can support us. Number 1, share this episode with a friend. Number 2, make sure to like and follow this show, and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Number 3, give us a follow over at Instagram. We're at Alpha Edge Army. So that's Alpha Edge Army all run together. I really appreciate you men taking the time to listen. And until next week, stay strong.